Hello and welcome to Really Help the Club, and today I'm going to be talking to Pam Custers, and this is the latest in our In Conversation series where we shine the spotlight on business owners, entrepreneurs, all experts in their field, and looking forward to chatting. Hear all about Pam's practice. We're going to hear about how she helps her clients. Pam is a leading psychotherapist. Here we go. That's all I've said about you. So I've left all the mystery. Left all the mystery to everybody else. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Sarah. Lovely to be with you.
Well, it's lovely to be with you too. And I was just saying, this is the latest in our In Conversation series. I don't know if you've followed some of these. I know we chatted about, a couple of years ago, and I think you're my 80th interviewee.
Wow.
So
wow.
I love these things, and I really love these things. And because there's some sort of commonality that we get from this in terms of, someone running a business, what they do, etc. But actually, it's the individuality. And the thing that we find most of all is the reason why someone does what they do is that burning passion that drives them through the highs and the lows and the good and the bad and so forth. And so what we find is so interesting is understanding someone's journey, beginning at the beginning, as it were, and hearing, where you've come from and why you do what you do is usually so revealing and, and potentially every bit as interesting, if not more so, than the destination itself. So let's start by shining the spotlight on Pam Custers and your background, your journey, how you come to be where you are.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Yes, it's always fascinating where somebody comes from, because it sort of tells you a little bit about where they're going, really.
Yeah.
So I started my career doing clinical psychology. That was my original degree. I finished that in my early 20s and thought, you know what, early 20s, hadn't lived life, thought really there was more to life than me going into a practice. And so I went into film. I made documentaries, and I did that for a number of years. And those were all sort of socio-political commentary in South Africa, which was a very exciting time at that point. But my calling was always back to psychology. And so after I left South Africa, I then did a postgraduate in attachment theory and spent a year doing that. And then I went and did a master's degree in couple therapy. And I did a specialization in working with all relationships, but I specialized in couples and families. So that was really my background. That's my academic background. And a little sojourn into film work for a number of years.
Yeah. Very interesting, very good. And tell us, obviously where that got you was ultimately founding your own practice, Pam Custers. Yes. and Associates. So tell us a bit about the inspiration behind it.
So Sarah, what I wanted to do right at the beginning was to provide people with a place that they could come to, a practice that would truly be taking good care of them. And what I realized is that whilst I was doing the couple work, I was doing the family work, soon it became clear that I needed associates who had other specialities, and who were not just generalists. We are all generalists in my practice, but each one of us comes with a speciality. And that was the exciting part of this, because when somebody comes into my practice, I make sure that they are triaged to the right person, whether that's myself or one of my associates. So that was really my inspiration in terms of myself working not just in isolation by myself and taking in people and saying, yes, I can do your work, but was working with a group of people who were specialists, who were the top of their field, the best in their game. And what I say to everybody is, the people who are my associates because I would go and see them. And that's why we've worked together.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting. Because again, I think it is, you know, for someone watching, you know, I want to ask you a bit more about the practice and the services and all that stuff in a minute. But it is really interesting for someone watching, you know, is that, you know, you're on the inside, as it were. You know the practice. You know, there you are. You've talked about doing a master's in couples theory. You've talked about, you know, your degree and your areas of specialisation. For somebody that is going through a challenge, whether it's, you know, with their children, with their partner, their spouse, or they've suffered a bereavement or trauma, whatever it is, they find themselves recognizing that they need and want something. But it's a really challenging world out there, isn't it? In terms of, you know, kind of what are the filters I should be looking for? I mean, of course, personal recommendation is good in itself, but it's only as good as the experience that person had. And we're talking about, you know, a clinical setting here, not just a, you know, something that's a service you're looking for in your home, whatever. This is, you know, this is really transformational stuff. And so I think, you know, that is really important. And I guess, you know, as a sort of a side question is, how do you position yourselves against, how does someone know when they've landed with a Pam Custers practice and your associates that they're in the right place?
Absolutely. So, and I think that's so important because, you know, there's a whole telephone directory of a million counselors and therapists out there. We're not all made the same. We might have the same, you know, counselor behind our name, or in my case, psychotherapist, but we're not all made the same. The one thing that we take real pride in is that each and every person who comes into the practice comes to me first. We have a really good conversation, and I make sure that they are triaged to the best person. And that's either with myself, so obviously I see clients myself, and some people really want to see me. They have spoken to their friends, or they've had someone recommend me. That's absolutely fine. But actually, sometimes people say they want to see me, but actually, I have an associate who works with that particular issue and is really, really good at that. So if I give you an example, Sarah, often people phone because it's about relationships, and they might have just had a very serious breakup. And I have one person who's dedicated to broken hearts. I have a person who understands absolutely and utterly how to midwife that person through to well-being, and understands all the pitfalls. Now, I can work with that, but actually that person is dedicated to that work. So, you know, if somebody comes to me and they want issues around desire in long-term relationships, for example, then perhaps we, you know, working with my sex therapist it may be a better fit. But what I do is make sure that I triage that person very, very carefully. And they may come to me and I may be the right person. But if I know that there is a speciality that would fit better, then I will move them to that person.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And so if someone's watching this and they're going, okay, fine, like the sound of his practice. I like the way that it works. That, you know, this is really good gatekeeping, you know, process that you go through
Mm-hmm.
on arrival. Let's find about a bit more about how you can help people, the types of people you help, the sort of specialities. You've alluded to one or two there, and you know, the services. So if someone's watching this, you know, I think the thing that we do at Really Help the Club is we're all about matching solutions to needs and taking the stress out of, and whatever that stress is that someone is experiencing. And in your case, this is going to be around, you know, all areas of, you know, of need, whether that is couples therapy or something to do with your children, or so forth. So perhaps, Pam, just tell us a little bit more about the range of services and how it's delivered, where it's delivered, and so forth. So we can get a sense of, you know, if someone watching this and they're experiencing something, they can go, yep, that Pam's
Absolutely.
talking. She's talking my need, as
Yeah,
it were.
exactly. So, Sarah, we've been running for quite a while, and we've been running long enough now to perhaps have worked with the parents, but are now working with the teens now. And really, we are almost like a very old-fashioned family practice where people trust us because we have their best interests at heart. And so the range of people that we work with is actually anybody from the age of 5 through to 95. And we work with people who are perhaps having mental health challenges of their own. Perhaps they're struggling with anxiety or depression or low mood, or perhaps there is someone who's just lost their job and are going through a transitional phase in their life. It can be, we have a number of therapists who are dedicated. We have quite a big intake of teens, particularly teens that are, you know, in the latter half of high school when there are a lot of challenges. Plus, we do a beautiful transitioning from high school into university. So there is someone there who is a consistent figure that can support young people into university. But of course, we're very, very well known working with couples. And with my experience and my work in attachment, in couple therapy, I love working with couples, and so do a number of my associates. And all relationships go through difficult moments. It just is. There are particular moments that are junctions where we need to shift and change. And we very much like to work with couples who perhaps are having issues around parenting, or maybe it's issues in terms of communication, or maybe their relationship just is in the doldrums and they've lost their spark, and they wake up every morning and think, who is this person? I'm married to you, I know I love you, but hey, where's the relationship? So we do the whole spectrum of work. We also have someone who specialises in trauma. So people who have perhaps experienced a particularly difficult time in their life, and that is sabotaging their ability to really live life fully, we have a trauma specialist. So we really have a wonderful spectrum of support.
And do you sort of cross, how do I put this? You know, someone might come to you and in fact, it sort of starts off as it's anxiety or couples related, but in fact, the real root of it could be trauma related. So do you then sort of cross refer, or do you know, how does that work?
Absolutely, Sarah. So I'll give you an example. Young couple contacts us. They've got a new baby. They're really finding it challenging. It's causing a lot of arguments at home. They can't seem to kind of figure out how to parent together. They seem to have very different ideas. And you know, they say we need couple work. And actually, they go off to couple work and they have a couple of sessions, and my very experienced therapists or myself will say, oh, actually, you know what, there's something else going on here. And actually, this is postnatal depression. This needs a specific kind of work. And what we'll say is, let's hold that couple work. And the one other person who I have as my associate is an absolute specialist in perinatal and postnatal mental health, which is very specific, very bespoke to that person. And we're able to say, why don't you have a couple of sessions by yourself to shift what's going on for you, and then let's come back to this conversation as a couple. And with the you know, the couple I'm thinking of who came to the practice many years ago, you know, we got a note back from the husband and said, I've got my wife back. Yes, of course, nothing is perfect, but actually we're able to navigate this very special time of raising children together. So sometimes, you know, people will come with one view, and clearly often something else comes up. Most of us are able to work with a range of things. So you're not going to be passed between therapists at all. You're going to be looked after by your therapist, whether it's myself or my associates. But if we see that there is a particular little issue that really is required to shift things, we will send you, and you'll have your own bespoke work in order to unknot the issue.
It is really interesting, that, isn't it? Because, you know, again, it's look, the couple or the individual, you know, the patient is actually, you know, they're the novice in all this, but they're the one that experiencing the pain and the stress and, you know, whatever the other symptoms are. So we think it may be one thing, but in fact, it could be something else. And it needs an expert, you know, to be able to unlock that, to be able to identify the, you know, the real source of a problem. So thank you for that, Pam. Now, the thing I really wanted to kind of, you know, drill down in a bit more detail today, because I know this is your, you know, an area that you're particularly so passionate about, you know, and so expert in, is couples therapy and, you know, and relationship therapy, and in particular, I know that you've introduced these couples intensive retreats.
Yes.
And which I think is a you know, it's a fascinating concept. And I guess this is beginning with, you know, of course, someone might come and see you in your practice, or they might, you know, consult with one of your associates over Zoom. What's the motivation? Where did the inspiration come for introducing a retreat?
Oh, Sarah, it is possibly my first love, because it is so truly transformational. It's a beautiful process. It's really one about love. You know, that's in essence what it's about. It's about love. What was my inspiration? My inspiration was that for many couples, couple therapy works for them. It's absolutely fine. But for some couples, they really want to get the traction quite quickly. They want to shift things in a way that is really fundamental. So the 3-day retreat, which is a half a day, a full day, and a half day, is really something that a lot of people like. They often, you know, they give themselves a dedicated space, a dedicated time. It's in person, and it's really, as soon as the person books and the couple book, the transformation almost begins before they come and do it with me, because there is a dedicated space to really rediscover the foundational part of their relationship. And that's what it's about. So I'm not going to be spending 3 days about talking about who's packed the dishwasher or who hasn't packed the dishwasher. That's not the work. The work is really something much deeper and far more profound.
Very interesting.
So, yeah, and people love going away, dedicating that time, and really they probably get the traction of a 6 to 9 months of therapy in those 3 days. It really is quite a beautiful process.
Very interesting. So okay. So I imagine there will be lots of people who watch this either now or or later on, and they'll think, well, that sounds quite interesting because I mean, I guess it's sort of almost like a bit of an MOT. It's an intensive, as you say.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what types of people would come to this? Would this be last chance saloon, the couple that's arrived at the, literally the courtroom to divorce, or the early stage, or where would you put on the kind of conveyor belt of relationship crossroads, as it were?
Well, I get all of those, really. What I find very interesting, it's often men who contact me about the couple intensive retreat, often because their partner has said to them, you know what, you need to do something. It's over to you. I'm fed up about X, Y, and Z. In an ideal world, Sarah, in an ideal world, we should all do this process because it is so foundational. It's so foundational of understanding how love works and how love is communicated and how we create connection in a loving relationship. So in my ideal world, it would be lovely for couples who perhaps decide they really want to enrich their relationship and want to really get a juicy experience. And they want to, dedicate this time. But at the same time, Sarah, often it's only when we are faced with a really serious relationship crisis that we start to look for the kind of support that a couple intensive can give you.
Yeah.
So that's, so there's a range of people. So there are young couples, there are couples often at that midlife period, and there are couples that are later in life and go, okay, here we are. How are we going to create our future? Let's rediscover each other.
Yeah, very, very, very good, very interesting, and I guess there'll be lots of people watching this. They go, okay, well that sounds great, and as you say, usually there's one or other partner within a relationship that is wanting to push things forward, or feel stuck in limbo, or whatever it is, and they may be thinking, I'd really like to do that.
Yeah.
Because I just, I think that could shift the dial. That could make the difference. And actually, it sounds to me like a wonderful opportunity to kind of to rekindle, to reconnect, to find that spark again. Which, as you rightly point out, in the humdrum of life of just raising a family, working, caring, and stuff, it's very easy for people to find that their partner has become their roommate, their friend,
Absolutely.
that the spark inevitably goes.
Yeah.
But there's a basis of love behind it, and so how you find that. So I guess the thing is, someone might be watching this and going, I think that would be just great. I think we should try it. Whether they're, as you say, it's a sort of a bit of an audit, or whether it is we're in last chance saloon. How do you, if someone says, okay, Pam, help me here, how would you suggest someone broaches that subject? Because it's quite a tricky one, kind of over the breakfast table, over the dinner table, or, whatever, of I think we should do this. I think we should try this. What would be your kind of different methods for, for suggesting it without that in itself causing a blow up?
Absolutely. So I think that the best way to approach coming on a couple intensive retreat is, if you are feeling somewhat dissatisfied, I will guarantee your partner is too, even if they haven't verbalized it.
Mm.
And it's really about saying to your partner, hey, we can go on this journey together, and there is some lovely stuff that's going to come out of it.
Mm.
The way to do it, preferably, is not to say, actually, if you don't come and do this thing, then that's it. Although some people do, but this is not punishment. Relationships are co-created. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And we all hit moments where we need to shift things. And this is a beautiful process. And about love, that does not find the bad guy. Yeah? There is no finding the bad guy. This is about a couple being taken through a process whereby they discover each other in a much more deeper and meaningful way. So, and that's really in essence, which I think is really beautiful. It's saying, hey, let's do this. This can be, let's reinvigorate our relationship. Let's reconnect.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because you think, particularly when you were talking about sort of midlife and slightly later life relationships, is often you've had that fun, that kind of discovery in your 20s, 30s, and then you've married or cohabited, and then you've started a family, but actually you forget to grow together, and you are growing as a family, but you forget to grow as a couple, and it's taking time out to rediscover the person that you fell in love with, and you probably can again.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if anybody's watching this, and I hope they do for us, but there's one word that I want everybody to remember: remain curious. You don't actually fully know what's going on in your partner's mind. It's only through that curiosity. If you remember, at the very early stage of your relationship, you were curious about everything. You wanted to know their favorite color, what they liked eating. Oh, if you won the lottery, what would we do? Curiosity. And really, the couple intensive retreat is about taking you both back and opening your mind to some curiosity, to understanding each other and the inner workings of each person. And I will guarantee that you both work quite differently. And how do we find a way in to really unpack that and understand that, so that our connection is deeper, our communication is deeper. We understand how to de-escalate when we're feeling disconnected. How do we do that? How do we re-engage desire in a long-term relationship?
Yeah, very interesting. So just take us through. I mean, you've talked about there's a half day, a whole day, a half day. Just take us through a little more detail about what someone would expect.
Yeah, so I do an afternoon, a full day, and then a morning. And on the first day, we really look at the neurobiology. And neuroscience is extraordinary. And the more we know about it, the more we understand how the neurobiology underpins our sense of love. And that's why it's so exciting to me, because that's really the focus of all my work, is about love. And we go then, and it's 8 stages. We do 2 stages on the first day, we do 4 stages on the second day, and we do the last 2 stages on the final day. And it's the first day we start to understand our internal working model. So I liken it to one person being an Apple Mac, the other one being a PC. There's nothing wrong with either of them, but sometimes the communication can get scrambled, and how each kind will communicate in a certain way, and each kind will respond to stress in a certain way. And it's in those moments of stress that the scrambling happens. And so we look at communication, we look at neurobiology, we look at the next day we dive deep into what your relationship dance is. We start practicing understanding, and what's lovely is there is no finger pointing. We take a meta position in looking at this. We take a helicopter position. We look, so when you do this, that's what's going on for you. And when I do that, that's going on for you. So how do we mitigate this? How do we de-escalate this? And then we practice it. And each stage, there is an understanding, and then couples practice. They actually do it together. And so by the end of the first day, we also start to look a little bit at some of the baggage that we bring into the relationship. We all have sensitivities around certain things, and we do this in a very beautiful way. We do it in a way whereby your love partner can truly hear you. And because we've done all these exercises, they are primed to really hear you and you to hear them. And there is an enormous amount of healing that takes place in the second half, where we can talk about our dissatisfactions, or we can talk about the stuff that sabotages our relationship, or maybe an event that happened in the past that is difficult. And that gets healed, and people are able to move on. And then they look at sex and desire and long-term relationships and with a curiosity, and that is curated for them, and they can do as much or as little as they want to, and that they do in the privacy of their own space. So I'm not privy to that on the second day. However, on the final day, if there are things that they wish to raise, I'm there, we process them. But on the final day, really what you're doing is we are creating together a new story, a new love story of what that couple wishes to create for their future. And it's only when we have a vision for our future that we can start to create it. And one of the difficulties that we get, Sarah, and you alluded to it earlier, is that often in relationships, we get into the rinse and repeat, and we lose sight of each other. So that's really the 3 days that we work together.
Very interesting, very intense, very really interesting. And I guess, for people watching, and we, obviously we've talked about it, we've talked about how to broach this with your with your partner, is what people are then going to be saying is, does it work?
Sarah, I'm delighted to say that this process is not Pam sucking her thumb and thinking, oh, I know, I've got a good idea. What I've used is I have taken the 3 doyens of couple relationship scientists and integrated that work. And I was lucky enough to be trained by one of them in this process. And this has informed this whole process. And yes, I would say that in all the intensives that I've worked with, and I've done a number, I would say that there were one or two that sadly had left it too late. And the one thing that 100% of the couples have said to me, because I give people a very in-depth feedback form, because I want to know what's working, because I'm excited by that, and also what's not working. But the one thing that 100% of people have said is, I wish we had come here earlier. I wish we had done this earlier. And the interesting thing, Sarah, and I'll tell you a little bit, is when I got trained, the only way I could get trained was by taking my husband and doing this process. And you know my husband, he's not in my world. He is in the very feet on the ground. And he said, do I really have to do this? And I said, darling, if you love me, you'll do this. And he said, okay, I'll do it. He said, but I'm going to sit in a room of psychotherapists. This is the last thing I want to do. And at the end of it, he said to me, wow, we've been married. And at that stage, we'd been married for 20 odd years. And he said, we've been married for that long. And I've come away with a deeper understanding of you and of us. And that was not him just giving me piecemeal conversation. He doesn't do that. But it was so fascinating for both of us, because it took us on an inner journey that was led, was supported, was navigated beautifully. And I take that journey and I use it. And on top of that journey, I also use the work of people like Professor Sue Johnson, like Esther Perel, and Gottman. So they are the three big names. I integrate that work. And so it's really solid stuff. I then bring my experience of having worked with many, many couples. And so it is really bespoke to each couple.
Yeah, really interesting. Well, I hope that answers a lot of people's questions, and I imagine that people will find this absolutely fascinating to watch afterwards. Pam, this has been really powerful. I think incredibly insightful, and I want to finish with one last question, and I guess it's for everybody out there, because people will, every couple, every relationship will hit its crossroads. Some will be very profound. And what would be your piece of advice for couples out there who may be struggling, may be stuck, maybe hit that crossroads? What is the message from Pam Custers?
Well, one, the word curiosity is really important. But as adults, we often have 2 or 3 significant relationships, often with the same person. So just think about that. And all relationships have to recalibrate. We all have moments where we need to recalibrate in our adult relationship, in our love relationship. And in those moments of recalibration, it can be a very vulnerable moment, but it can be a very powerful, growthful moment. And if people embrace that moment with an open mind and an open heart, then, Sarah, they are able to have the ability to create a healthy, loving, joyful, and fulfilling relationship. And I truly, truly believe that, because I've experienced that. I've experienced it in the room with couples who have really been very concerned for their relationship, but have truly transformed it. And it can be a very magical process.
Pam, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. For those who watch it later, for those who've watched it now, we share this on our Instagram channel. Pam will share this on hers as well. We will share this across all our different social media platforms. We all know somebody in our life that needs to hear this conversation. We all know somebody that could benefit from this. So we always say to people, if you've enjoyed a conversation, if you've enjoyed one of these conversations we have, then please share it. I think this is especially important. We know that relationships are at the root of everything in life. Our relationships are the thing that makes us whole. So if you have enjoyed this and you would like someone to hear what Pam has to say, and especially that last message, then please do share it to those that matter to you. Pam, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. Been lovely being with you. Take care.